Now when it comes to the economy, the talk of the town lately has been the new Phantom muspah boss. Now there are a lot of items that have been drastically affected by this update, and a lot of people are comparing it to when Zulrah was released or even Vorkath. So there's no doubt that the new boss has a very good drop table, but how has it affected the market overall? Now the Phantom muspah boss fight has a lot of alchables and resource items on this drop table, and a sector of the market that's probably damaged the most are herb seeds, and particularly the torsal seed. Now it's not been a good year for torsal seeds because not only is this new boss dropping tons of them, but also the Tombs of a Masket, it's just never recovered from its normal price of around 40 or 50k, and nowadays so many different monsters drop it. This week, for the first time ever, the torsal seed went under 10,000 GP, one of the highest level seeds, now worth, well, not much at all. Now obviously this item was already on the decline, but it dropped an additional 30% or so just from this new drop table. Another item it drops in bulk are Renar seeds. They drop in as high quantity as 10, and that has also crashed the value of Renar seeds by about a third as well, going from around 33,000 down to currently 22,000. With a giant drop off just this afternoon, not sure what happened there. Another item that's been hit pretty hard are U seeds. They went from 46,000 down to 30,000. So if you're looking to train farming, now is not a bad time, with U seeds at pretty much an all-time low. Another seed that was hit pretty hard, the palm tree seed, going from 34,000 down to 25,000. And of course, herbs are dropping very quickly as well. And it's not terribly surprising why the Phantom muspah drops a significant amount of herbs and herb seeds, dropping up to 74 grimy Toadflax at a time, 31 Snapdragon, and of course the drop table has a ton of other things on it, but most of these are at alch value already. Now are items like this ever going to recover? I'm not sure, it might be dependent on the item. Something like the torsal seed, I kind of doubt it. Pre-Tombs of a Masket, torsal seeds really just were not dropped in large quantities anywhere. But you can see right on GU Tracker, the daily traded in the game went from around 150,000 up to a peak of 600,000. So there's 4 times the quantity coming into the game now, and I just don't think that price will ever recover with that in mind. So yesterday I went outside to go for a run, and I went to plug in my headphones and there's no aux port on my phone. Thankfully, the folks over at Raycon sent me a pair of their Raycon Everyday earbuds, which is the sponsor of today's video. I've been playing around with these earbuds for a few weeks now and I'm actually really impressed. Unlike some of the other wireless earbuds I've used in the past, I was able to instantly connect them to my phone within minutes of opening the box. They also fit my ears perfectly, they're really comfortable, and they stay nice and snug, don't really move around at all. From a full charge, the Raycon earbuds last about 8 hours of playtime, which is really good, just around enough time for me to get 1 mining level. One thing I really like about the Raycon earbuds is they offer multiple different sound profiles, because right now my Spotify library is kind of like a slot machine for what genre you're likely to get, but by just holding the left earbud for 3 seconds, it will switch between a bass profile for people like EDM, a balanced one for like jazz or classical, and they even have one that's optimized for podcasts. I've also noticed that the Raycon earbuds tend to come in at half the price of other premium earbuds on the market. So definitely go check Raycon out, and to make sure you get the best deal, make sure you use the link in my description, or go to buyraycon.com/flipping to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. And thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring the video. Now besides herb seeds, the Phantom muspah is also dropping herbs directly. So items like Toadflax is dropped by around 1,000 GP, and the grimy Snapdragon fell by about 15% or so. Now beyond herbs, there are a few more niche items that are dropping. I mean, something like the water orb has dropped by about 30%, but you can see that just the volume is so much higher after this update. Nothing really dropped water orbs before the Phantom muspah, and now there's like 30 or 40k trade per hour. And even gold ore was affected, dropping from around 300 down to almost 200. So in my opinion, is this drop table as busted as Zulrah? No, I wouldn't say that at all. Sure, there are certain sectors of the market that have been hit pretty hard, specifically the herb market, but in my opinion, it hasn't had as wide a sweeping effect as Zulrah or even Vorkath has. And I think that comes down to a large majority of the value of the drops being either alchable items the new unique items, or ancient essence. So it'll be interesting to see the profitability over time, but for now it's a pretty high profit boss with really only tanking the herb market. Now, thanks to the new boss, there were of course items that went up drastically, and the first one I want to talk about, the Armadillo Crossbow. The Armadillo Crossbow has had quite a year with Nex and now the Phantom Muspah, greatly benefiting from crossbows. So the Armadillo Crossbow went from 32 mil up to a peak of 50 mil in just a couple of days. If you look at the all-time view for the Armadillo Crossbow, yeah, Nex was pretty crazy, but I mean, it's still at nearly an all-time high now. On top of that, we have also the Zerite Crossbow going up a significant amount as well, going from 365 mil up to 410 mil at its peak, which is less of an increase, but the price point makes it a bit less accessible, so I don't think as many people were able to buy this. And even the Dragon Crossbow went up quite a bit, from 1.7 mil to a peak of 3 mil on the release day. Now, why did all these crossbows jump up so much? Well, they're all extremely useful because of one phase of the boss that requires you to use an item you would never really expect, Sapphire bolts. So here's the daily quantity for Sapphire bolts before the update. Almost no one bought them. After the update, it immediately jumps up to like 500,000 per hour. Now, enchanted Sapphire bolts are extremely useful because they pierce through the Phantom Muspah's shield phase or the soul split phase. So Sapphire bolts jumped from 15 GP each up to 500 GP plus in a couple hours. They've fallen right back down again because I think most people are opting to just use the Sapphire Dragon bolts, which also jumped up a lot. But although the bolts didn't jump up that much, the crossbows definitely did. These two crossbows in particular are very useful because their special attack increases the activation chance of your bolt special attack, which is really what you're looking for. The Armadillo Crossbow is beneficial because you can spec twice, although it's only a 20% chance or so of activation. The Zerite Crossbow is a 75% chance of activating, but you can only use the spec once per shield phase. Another item that is pretty much at an all-time high is actually the Twisted Bow, currently worth 1,340 mil, which is pretty much the highest I've ever seen it, barring release of course. Now that really just comes down to the fact that the Twisted Bow is just incredibly good here, probably the single strongest item you could have for the boss fight, so strong in fact that you can just camp it the entire time without even gear switching, making it a very lucrative item. The Tumican Shadow is also incredibly helpful, and it has jumped up a fair bit as well, going from 1.3 bill at the low point, jumping up around 80 mil just this week, which is a pretty solid increase. Another item that has seen a huge amount of demand due to the Phantom Muspah is the Ahrims armor set. Look at the Ahrims hood in particular, going from 80,000 up to 500k plus. It looks like one even sold for a mil, essentially 10xing its value in just about a day and a bit. Kind of crazy. Now the Ahrims hood is useful in particular because magic accuracy is actually pretty important with this boss if you use a mage switch. The Ahrims hood normally doesn't have very much demand, but it skyrocketed thanks to the new boss. I mean, the Ahrims set in general has gone up a lot, some selling for nearly 13 mil on January 11th, which is crazy, and even prior to this update, Ahrims were worth a lot. If you look back over the last 4 years, Ahrims is now at an all-time high of 10 mil. Never been this expensive before, but demand for this item has really skyrocketed recently. Now the final item that I personally got merged on quite a bit on the first day, Icy Basalt. Now unfortunately for me, I never built a teleport to Weiss in my POH, and to build one you need 1,000 Icy Basalt. Now because Icy Basalt offers the closest teleport to the new boss, it skyrocketed from 1.8 thousand up to 10,000 each. I mean, I bought a couple dozen of them for 10k each, although they didn't stay at this value for long and proceeded to pretty quickly crash back down right to their original value. The thing is, obtaining these is actually quite simple, and as the demand for the teleport wore off and people just built the teleport in their POH, I don't think many people are buying these anymore. But to be fair, their value still is pretty high when you compare it to a couple months ago. Now because it is a new boss, there is of course some new items. The main tradable unique item that it drops is the Venator shard. Now you need 5 Venator shards to make a Venator bow, which means unlike other bosses in the past, they really are hammering down that this boss is meant to be a consistent moneymaker. Instead of just putting the Venator bow on the drop table and making it 5 times rarer, they made it so you need 5 of these individual pieces to make the bow. Now the shards right now are valued at around 8 mil each, which means the Venator bow is worth around 40 mil. Now it's hard to predict where this bow is going to land. Currently it seems to just be a very good training method for Slayer, Nightmare Zone, or other places you want to AFK, but so just based on those uses alone, I don't think the value is going to hold this well, but it's also kind of early days and this item is really interesting and I could easily see some other niche uses for it crop up as well. But similar to other consistent money-making bosses like Zulrah or Vorkath, the unique items tend to eventually fall in value, as people farm the bosses not really just for the uniques, but for the consistent money it provides. Now with that said, the Venator shards actually have an alch value of 1.8 mil, which means the bow should hold a pretty steady value at a minimum of 10 mil, which is kind of interesting. Now the boss also drops Ancient Essence, which currently is worth around 138 GP each, but has consistently been dropping. Now the Ancient Essence is used to power the bow, but also to upgrade an Imbued Heart, which is actually going to be made tradable next week. Now although the Imbued Heart takes 150,000 Ancient Essence to upgrade, it's hard to imagine this price staying stable unless the Venator bow is actually used. And finally here we have the Forgotten Brew, which is also created by using Ancient Essence on an Ancient Brew. Currently the Forgotten Brew is actually worth around 12,000 each. And unlike the other items, I actually would expect this price to remain pretty consistent, assuming Ancient Essence don't drop too far. Unlike the Venator bow, which probably will have some niche uses, the Forgotten Brew is actually pretty good. I mean, it straight up just gives you a couple extra max hits if you're using Trident style weapons, which is definitely worth it for those who don't have an Imbued Heart. So although it's a bit early to make predictions, what do you guys think? Do you think there's enough uses for Ancient Essence for the price to stabilize, or do you think people are going to farm the boss too much and this will just continue to drop and drop? Anyway guys, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Now quickly before I go here, I just want to thank all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Alejandra, Prophet of the Boosh, Mitch Reinders, The Hybrid, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. Also a giant thank you to YoYoSup89 and NDM0001 for subscribing at the Runite tier. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.